What's up YouTube? Today I'm going to be showing you a simple tutorial on using GIMP. So first we're going to start out by I'm going to show you what all these GUIs do. I have my GUI set up a certain way because I like them this way. But you can do what I'm doing right now by right clicking, going to Windows, Dockable Dialogues, and you can select whichever ones you want. I usually do Layers, Tool Options, brushes, and fonts. That's what I use. And then it'll open windows similar to this, and what I like to do is I like to drag them into each other so it makes a nice condensed space that is easy accessible, so we can use it whatever we want. Okay, now I'm going to show you our toolbox. Okay, so this is your toolbox, and this is where most of the tools are that you're going to be using when you're going to want to use GIMP. This is a rectangle select tool, and what this does is this selects a rectangle area out of your picture or canvas. This is very good for pasting, copying things from other images, pasting it, or making gradients, that stuff. This is a circular tool, and this does similar things, except you can make round gradients and round buttons. This is our lasso tool, and this is probably the #1 tool that I hate, just because it's so hard to draw with, and I just don't like it. Professionals use this to cut out images, but like I said, it's really hard to use. I don't suggest using it. This is the fuzzy select tool. I showed you in my other vid called extracting an image out of an image. You can use this to take an image from another image. This is your color select tool, and basically what this does is, I also mentioned this in my other vid, but you can use it to select a certain color in your picture. So if we don't want a background on this, we can simply select the white layer and just erase it. Next tool, it's our scissors select tool, which is another tool you can use to cut out images or cut out pictures or whatever you want to do. I like this tool a lot because it actually binds to different colors. As you can see, I'm not just freehanding it like the lasso tool. It comes in great handy. Alright, this tool, I've really never used this tool. It's a foreground select tool. I'm guessing that it selects your foreground color and that so you can extract it from our image, but like I said, I don't really use this. I think it's too dramatic. And all these other ways to extract images are so much easier. This is the paths tool. I really don't like this one either because it's just so hard to make shapes with it. Except actually with polygonal, this one's actually pretty cool because you can make different shapes, but without polygonal, it's just horrible. You have to customly make different shapes like this, and it's super hard. I don't like it at all. Okay, so our next tool is it's a color select tool. So if I have a certain color in an image that I want as my foreground color, all I have to do is just click. So if I want white, it copies the color from the image and it puts it as your foreground color. Okay, the next tool is the zoom tool, which comes in handy sometimes, but I like to control scroll, which is I just push control and scroll my scroll bar on my mouse. Next tool, I've never really used this. It's a measuring tool, but I'm not really sure how it works. I'm guessing you can measure pixels. Yeah, it shows you in the bottom left that how high or what the angle of something is. I don't really see any use for it. Now this is the move tool. I use this a lot, and what this does is basically you can either move your background or you can move individual layers that are in your background, or you can move pictures that you copy and paste. It comes in really good handy. Alright, this tool lets you position pictures or your background. It lets you center it or put it in a certain place. I usually just eyeball everything, so I don't really use that. This is the X-Acto tool, so you select an area like this, and it just basically numbers it out. It's like a crop tool. So then what we can do from here is crop it. I think it comes in handy with square images, but other than that, it's crap. Okay, let's go to our moving tools, our rotating tools. I use these a lot for YouTube backgrounds, especially the rotate, because you can rotate words, and so you can put them lateral 90 degrees. This is kind of cool. What it does is it shrinks an image to, it makes it big on one side and it shrinks it on the other side. So it gives you kind of a cool effect. Cancel. I've never really used this tool, but what it does is it kind of just deforms your tool diagonally. I think it could come in good handy at some point. What this tool does is it makes it really small up top and makes it really small on the bottom. I've never really used this, except I kind of like using it in like comics because it makes things bigger and some things smaller. Gives it kind of a cool effect. Just do that really quick. Select. I'm going to be showing you this in a second because this is probably the best thing I use the most. Okay, now what this does is, say if you have an object like, I don't know, a sword, and it's facing like left and you want it to face right, all you have to do is you swap it right and it'll switch it, it'll swap it. I thought that was pretty cool. And this is it's kind of a cage, it's a cage transform, and it's kind of like the paths tool, except it's easier to use, I think, and it's straight lines like the polygon tool. But basically you can select different shapes with this. You can cut out different shapes. I like it. And gimp's not responding. Okay, there we go. This is our text tool. What this does, I can bet you can take a good guess, is you can write text out. So let's just type 5280. Oops. This gives you a nice text effect where you can select different text to use. And you can select what size you want it. You can make it bold or italic or underlined, crossed out, all of those. Comes in really good use. Okay, this is our paint fill tool, and what this does is it fills solid shapes with the foreground color. I like using this for simple images, like if I'm making Minecraft art or simple banners. It also does patterns. Patterns are really unique because it gives your canvas kind of a unique pattern fill. I'll show you one of my favorites. This is the inverted normal, and I like this because it gives it a nice kind of just texture, and there's boxes. And what usually I do is I would make a gradient on the background. I would set the opacity to 15, and what that does is it gives it kind of, it seeps through the gradient and it looks really good. Next tool is a gradient tool, which I was just talking about, where you can select either some default colors, which are kind of typical, just random colors, flares, those are good sometimes, but usually I just use the FB to PG, which is our two colors right here. Now I'm going to show you some of the shapes you can do. Usually I use a linear to make it a nice fade, or bilinear makes it so you have a fade on both sides like this. Well, no, that's radial. Bilinear gives you a fade on both sides. But I've never really used these ones. I don't really like them. They look kind of funny. But yeah, this is the gradient tool. Next tool is our pencil tool, which is okay if you're drawing solid color shapes, but for cooler brushes such as like a planet, let's try that really quick if I can find it. I'm planning on making a GFX pack with all my brushes and over 3,000 fonts when I get a few more subs. So just be aware of that. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, let's just do technical brush. See, it paints it a solid color, unlike our paintbrush, which actually makes it kind of a dimmer, actual, like, it looks real. I use the paintbrush for planets and stuff that has alternating colors, stuff like that. This is our eraser tool, and what we can do with this is, as you can see, we can erase paint or we can erase the background. But when you're erasing the background, you're always going to want to make sure you have an alpha channel on the background, so you can erase the background completely. Okay, our next tool is the airbrush tool, which I've never really used to an extent, but it's basically like a paintbrush, except it's really faded. So if you click like 20 times, it makes it really dark, which is pretty useless, I think. Now this is an ink tool, which I've never really used. Looks like just a quill, like a paint tool. I'm not really sure, but I don't see the use of it. This is our stamp tool, and basically you just stamp a color onto a different color. I don't really like it. Healing tool, this heals an image. All these tools down here are if you're editing like people, and they don't really come into use unless you're doing some really like hardcore image editing. So I don't really find those helpful when I'm making logos or YouTube backgrounds. Okay, let's get off this. Now I'll be showing you some of the tabs up top that come in use a lot. They have like shortcuts you can use, and just think that this is how you export stuff. You would hit export, and if I wanted to save this, I would export it as a JPEG, and I would just save that to my, come on GIMP. I would save that to my desktop or somewhere in there. Right here is our edit tool. You can copy, cut, paste info, fill. There's a bunch of different stuff. Stroke to path is actually what we use with our path tool. It actually strokes the path that we make with a brush. So say we make it like this, and then we go edit, stroke path, we select stroke with paintbrush. Whoa, I had a weird brush, but basically it just stroked along the path line I made. Alright, next is a view tool, and this is basically just your zoom, your navigation, your shrink, your full screen, just a bunch of stuff that you don't really need to use. Now the image is our transforming, our flipping. This is what we use to scale, crop, all that stuff. You'll be able to figure out most of the stuff in here by watching my other tutorials. This is the layer, which doesn't come in great use unless you have this, which is, you can just basically do all the same stuff with shortcuts in there. Our colors makes us, it basically changes colors in pictures. So colorize, it takes out all of the light, images, brightness, change the brightness, the contrast, all of this other stuff that I've never really used. Now tools is basically, we have the tool options right here, basically the same thing. Filters is pretty much the coolest thing about this program, and basically you can do all sorts of stuff. My favorite is the clouds, just because it gives it nice colors and whatever. I can't do that, but you'll be able to see that in some of my tutorials. I go more in depth with these filters in more of my tutorials, but today I don't have enough time to do that. This is my Windows tab, and basically this is how you get all your dockable dialogue, such as these, which is what I did. You're going to want to make sure you have these set up like I do if you want to follow tutorials in depth like I do. And then you just have the help. So right now I'm going to tell you how to export and save the right way, else you won't be able to do it the right way. So let's save this to my desktop. It's going to save it as a .xcf file, which is a GIMP format. And basically it's like for Photoshop, it's like a PSD. It just saves it, so when you open it back up in GIMP, it shows up on all the layers. When I usually save things, I usually save one like that, and I usually export it. Now when you export, it basically just sends out a JPEG or a PNG file, which I like to use. I use a JPEG if I want it to be a smaller format, and I use a PNG if I want it to be like just a smaller image. PNG is usually better format, but it also it's a lot bigger than a JPEG. So for YouTube backgrounds, I use JPEG. For avatars, I use PNG. So yeah, this is a basic GIMP tutorial. I'll be getting into more advanced techniques in some other tutorials. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe.